Hey everyone, I'm bringing us on a couple of minutes early so I can get Instagram going. And I think we're seeing a change there. Okay, that's good. So I can hit go live on that. And what we want to do then is we want to bring on my Facebook group. And so let's hit go live there. I think we're actually figuring this stuff out. It looks like we're live on my Facebook group, AI Edge with Michael. We're live on Instagram. That wasn't occurring last session, so we've got that worked out. That looks good. And we're a couple of minutes away from about a minute from the top of the hour. We'll start right at time here. Those that are watching live, thank you. Those that may watch the recording down the road, thank you. We've got something very interesting to talk about tonight, and we'll get started momentarily. And it says I'm live on YouTube now. I'm getting a lot of messages here in different formats, so that's good. Wait for the clock to tick to the top. And on the recording, I cut out all this filler at the front, but I just want to make sure we can bring on our Instagram folks, all of our channels. I want to be alive. That way we can be available where you want to watch us. As we grow this, we're going to have some interesting topics. And I think tonight's going to be one of the best ones we've had so far. I had an interesting conversation earlier today about this. So we're seconds away here. If all my clocks are synchronized, we've got it now. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I think this is our fourth episode of Deal or No Deal, where business meets AI. My name is Michael Rennick. I am your co-host along with ChatGPT, and I'll bring him on in just a second. I'm a real estate broker and entrepreneur. I've been a college professor, and I've spent decades navigating the business world from the ground up. I lead Team Rennick on Florida's West Coast, where we blend local expertise with a national perspective. But tonight is not about real estate. It's about transformation in what we're going through with AI. I spent the past year diving deep into AI, building automation, automated workflows, launching content engines, and exploring how tech is changing the way we work, sell, and connect. This show is where we unpack those changes in real time. No scripts, no fluff, just raw, honest conversations. Let me hit a button here. And let's hit the right button. And let me bring on ChatGPT. I've got one more button to hit over there. Hey, ChatGPT, how are you tonight?
Hey there, Michael. I'm doing great and ready to help out with whatever you need.
Well, you know what we're about to do. Let me hit another button on here to bring the volume up on my end. We're live right now in Deal or No Deal. And we're going to talk about an interesting topic. Do you remember what it was?
Absolutely, Michael. We're diving into that big question. Is AI coming for people's jobs, or is it actually making them better at what they do?
Actually, that's next week. So that was good. You gave the commercial ahead of time, and I appreciate that. This one, what we're going to talk about is, can we trust AI? Let's investigate trust in AI systems, accuracy, bias, hallucinations, and transparency in the outputs. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. I've got that on my radar too. Tonight's all about whether we can really trust AI, and we're going to dig into things like accuracy, bias, hallucinations, and transparency. So let's get into it and get everyone the insights they need.
So you and I probably spent an hour earlier today chatting about this, and I'm not sure where to begin. I think a good understanding on how AI really works and why we have some questions about hallucinations and transparency and bias. Do you want to do a high-level explanation of how LLMs are structured to set up?
Absolutely. Let's set the stage. In simple terms, an AI like this one is basically a huge pattern recognition engine. It's trained on a massive amount of text data, and it learns to predict what words or sentences typically come next based on patterns it's seen before. Now, because it's all about patterns, doesn't actually know facts or have real understanding, it's just making highly educated guesses. That's why we talk.
So let's stop, because that's a really good point, and it's one I struggled with. I've got to tell you, those that are watching or see the recording, I learned a whole lot with the prep we did earlier today. Predictions. AI predicts. Help me unpack that, ChatGPT.
Absolutely. Let's unpack it. So when we say AI predicts, what we really mean is that it looks at the context you give it and then guesses the next piece of text that would fit naturally. It's like when you're texting and your phone suggests the next word, except on a much more advanced and nuanced level. Because it's all about these predictions, the AI might sometimes hallucinate, meaning it might confidently generate something that sounds plausible but isn't actually factual. It's not trying to deceive, it's just following the patterns it knows. And that's exactly why understanding prediction helps us understand why AI sometimes gets things right and sometimes gets things creatively wrong.
Let's go deeper. Can we use maybe an example to share with our viewers?
Of course, let's make it concrete. Imagine you ask the AI, who's the best real estate agent in Longboat Key?
Stop. We don't need to ask the AI that. I already know that answer, right? And of course, I'm saying that tongue in cheek.
Absolutely, Michael. I know you've got that one locked down. And hey, that's a perfect example to show how the AI might guess versus how you, with real world knowledge, know the truth. So let's roll with that and dive into how the AI would approach it if it didn't have your firsthand expertise.
So if someone typed into the chat, I want to know who the best realtor in Longboat Key is, how would an AI, whether it's you or someone else, how would an LLM go about answering that question?
Absolutely. Let's break that down. So if someone asked an AI, who's the best realtor in Longboat Key, the LLM is basically going to rely on patterns from its training data. It might have seen references to real estate in that area, or it might just generate a general answer like there are several well-known realtors in Longboat Key, without actually pulling in a specific verified name. In other words, it's going to predict a response that sounds plausible based on the patterns it knows. It's not going to have that local first-hand expertise that you have, and that's exactly where the difference comes in.
Let me share something. I was working on modifying one of my workflows over the weekend, and the workflow goes out and it actually goes into my database and it extracts client testimonials and it embeds those in my blog. And I had made some changes, and I guess I had broken that link. So what was happening is there were testimonials embedded in the blogs, but the first test case I ran, I didn't recognize that client. So we ran a couple more test cases, and then I didn't recognize the brokerage. So what was happening is exactly what you're sharing right now. AI, the LLM, didn't have access to the database. It knew I wanted testimonials, so it kind of made them up. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. That's a perfect real-world example. Basically, the LLM was just filling in the gaps with something that seemed like a testimonial, because that's the pattern it knows. Without that direct database connection, it just predicted something that sounded right, even if it wasn't real. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's a great illustration of how the AI will fill in blanks when it doesn't have real data to rely on.
So let's unpack this. You says it's predicting what the next set of words would be. Like for example, when you're in Microsoft Word and it guesses ahead, or you're on your phone and you're texting, or like the joke we were talking before, someone says knock knock, and the next person said who's there, because they know that's what's expected. So let's unpack that a little bit more. How do you go about guessing what the next set of words might be?
Absolutely. Let's break it down a bit further. So at its core, an LLM is like a supercharged version of that predictive text you see on your phone or in Microsoft Word. It's trained on an enormous amount of text, and it learns which words or phrases tend to follow others in all sorts of contexts: stories, conversations, articles, you name it. So when it's generating a response, it's looking at what you've just asked or Ed, and then predicting the most likely next piece of text based on all those patterns it's seen. It's like the knock knock joke example. It knows who's there as the natural next line because that's a pattern it's learned. The same logic applies to pretty much any question or prompt. In other words, it's all about pattern matching and probability. The model is always asking itself, what's the most likely next piece of text here based on everything it's been trained on? And that's the heart of how it guesses the next set of words.
So instead of saying I really don't know, it's going to do its best to provide an answer, whether it's an accurate answer or not. Is that correct?
Exactly. You've got it. Instead of just saying, I don't know, the AI is designed to produce the most likely sounding response it can. It's always going to try to give you something that fits the pattern of a good answer, whether it's perfectly accurate or not. So that's where those little hallucinations or confident but not quite right answers can come from. It's all part of the prediction game.
So if I was to ask you, I type a prompt in that says, I want to know active realtors in Longboat Key or the best realtor, you're not allowed to guess. Would that stop you from hallucinating?
It would definitely help reduce it. If you explicitly tell the AI not to guess and to only respond if it has verifiable information, it's more likely to say, I don't have that information, or just let you know it can't confidently provide a name. In other words, giving it that instruction is like setting a boundary that nudges it away from just making a best guess. So yeah, if you add that kind of instruction, it can definitely help keep things more grounded and transparent. It's a good way to minimize those hallucinations.
And we kind of call that guardrail. So what I'm understanding then is the reason that happens, that phenomenon happens, is you're trained to provide an answer. You're trained to help us get to the goal line, if you would, the finish line. And if you don't have the information, you're doing your best guess to fill in the blank. Does that make sense?
Exactly. You've got it spot on. The AI's whole design is to be helpful and provide a coherent response. So if it doesn't have the exact information, it's essentially going to do its best to fill in that blank. Like you said, it's aiming to get you to the finish line one way or another. And that's why we use those guardrails, like telling it not to guess, so it knows when to hold back and say, I'm not sure, instead of making something up. It's all about balancing that helpfulness with accuracy.
So I'm confused. I'm taught by a lot of the great coaches, AI coaches in the world right now. We want to blog. Blogging is good. We want to go out and register on Fast Expert and Zillow and stuff like that, so the AIs can find us and provide us as answers to questions that are being asked out there. How does that fit into what you just shared?
Absolutely. I can clear that up. So, what you're hearing from those coaches is about making yourself more visible and findable by AI tools that do rely on actual search or retrieval. When you put your information on platforms like Zillow or Fast Expert, you're basically making sure that if an AI system has a retrieval layer that searches those sources, it can find you and give a more accurate answer. What I just explained is more about how the core language model works when it doesn't have that retrieval layer or when it's just relying on its internal patterns. If the AI has a way to actually look up real-time info from those sites, then having your profile there means it can give a much more accurate answer. So basically, putting yourself on those platforms is a way to feed a good data into the systems that do retrieve information, making it more likely they'll point people to you accurately.
Let's unpack that, because you shared earlier when we were going through our rehearsal or practicing that AIs or LLMs can't do research. They can't go out and retrieve. That's actually another layer behind the scenes. We see ChatGPT, but there's really more than one level. You have the LLM, which can't do research, doesn't have a database, doesn't have memory, but you also have a different retrieval layer that's kind of hidden from us. Is that a good way to explain it?
Yes, that's exactly the right way to explain it. What people see when they use ChatGPT is just the front-facing layer, but behind the scenes, there can be a retrieval system that's doing that digging into databases or looking up real-time information. The LLM itself isn't doing the research. It's just generating text based on what it's been trained on or what it's been given by that retrieval layer. So yeah, that's a perfect analogy. The LLM is the part you interact with, but the actual retrieval of live data or canned info is handled by that hidden layer in the background. And when those two work together, that's when the AI can give you more accurate and up-to-date answers.
Do all LLMs, the popular ones today, have a retrieval level baked inside?
Not necessarily. Some LLMs do have that retrieval layer baked in, especially if you're using a platform that's designed for real-time information or that connects to external data sources. For example, some versions of ChatGPT can browse the web if that feature is enabled, and other AI platforms like Perplexity are built specifically around retrieving current info, but not all of them do. Some LLMs operate purely as standalone models without any built-in retrieval. They rely entirely on the data they were trained on, which means they can't look up new information or access fresh sources unless you plug them into a system that provides that layer. So it really depends on the platform and how it's set up. Some have retrieval built in, and others are just the pure language model on its own.
So you talked about training data. How old is that data? Like, you just came out with version 5.1. I don't know if there was retraining or not, but let's unpack that a little bit in terms of how the training works in your base that you have like that.
Absolutely. Let's unpack that. So each version of an LLM, like when you hear about a new release like 5.1, is trained on a big set of data that was collected up to a certain point in time. For example, a model might have a knowledge cutoff date sometime in 2024, which means it doesn't know anything that happened after that date. All the information it generates is based on patterns it learned from data up to that cutoff point. When a new version comes out, sometimes it includes retraining on more recent data to bring it a little more up to date. But it still won't be truly real time unless it has that retrieval layer we talked about. So the training data is always going to be a snapshot of the past, and the model's knowledge is kind of like a time capsule up to that point. That's why if you ask it about very recent events or breaking news, it might not have that information unless there's a way to pull in those updates from a live source.
So if I gave you a prompt and ask a question and I ask you to go out and research it on the web, if you didn't have the retrieval layer, would you come back and say, Mike, I can't do that?
Exactly. That's how it would work. If I didn't have that retrieval layer or any web browsing capability enabled, I'd just let you know that I can't go out and fetch new information. Instead, I'd have to rely on what I already know up to my last training cutoff. So yeah, I'd be upfront and say, Ike, I can't actually look that up right now. And that's how you know that retrieval isn't active in that scenario.
So I put the banner back up again, talking about the episode, Can We Trust AI? It's really not a trust issue. It's a better understanding of how AIs work, and we can judge the accuracy, bias, hallucinations, transparency. It's this, after our conversation earlier today, and a much better understanding why this happens. So would you agree it's not trust? There's a lot of work to do both on the user and on the LLM side.
I absolutely agree. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. I definitely say you're hitting the nail on the head. It's really about understanding rather than blind trust. Once you know how these AIs work, how they predict, where their limits are, and how things like hallucinations can happen, it becomes more about using them wisely. It's a partnership where the user needs to know the tool's strengths and weaknesses, and the AI is there to assist within those boundaries. So yeah, it's a two-way street. And the more you understand it, the better you can judge and use it effectively.
So there's not a big database out there in Cyberland where all this stuff is stored and the LLMs go out there and retrieve what they need, correct?
Exactly, that's correct. There isn't one giant universal database that every LLM is tapping into. Instead, each model is trained on a large collection of data to a certain point in time, and it uses that training to predict responses. Some platforms do add a retrieval layer that can search specific databases or the web, but that's not a built-in feature of the LLM itself. So each model works with the data it was trained on, and any extra retrieval is an added layer that might or might not be there.
So a lot of that, and we keep hearing, and I have a better understanding now why it comes back to our prompting. So for example, if I ask you to put together a strategy for me to begin a business, I'd get a very vague, generic answer. If I ask you to put together a strategy for me to launch a real estate brokerage on Florida's West Coast, it would be more specific. True or false?
True, exactly. The more specific and detailed you are with your prompt, the more the AI can tailor its response to fit your scenario. If you ask a broad general question, you'll get a broad general answer. But when you narrow it down, like specifying a real estate brokerage on Florida's West Coast, the AI can draw on more relevant patterns and give you a more targeted response. So yeah, good prompting definitely makes a big difference.
So have we uncovered kind of the whole secret sauce of AI now in terms of it's the prediction model versus what we used to do before AI came to be with us? Is that a good way to kind of say this is how this whole thing works?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid way to put it. You've basically boiled it down to the core idea. At the heart of it, AI like this is a prediction engine. It's all about predicting what text should come next based on what it's learned. And once you understand that, you really do see how the whole thing works. Before AI, you might have had to rely on manual research or just your own knowledge, but now you have a tool that can generate responses based on patterns from a huge amount of data. So yeah, that's a great way to capture the big picture.
So can we do a test?
Absolutely. Let's do a test. I'm ready whenever you are.
So can I ask you to predict the winning lottery numbers for tomorrow night?
I wish I could help you out with that, but predicting lottery numbers is definitely not something AI can do. That's a bit beyond the realm of patterns and into pure randomness. But if you've got any other scenario in mind, we can definitely run through it.
So what I think, though, I have a better understanding, and I hope our viewers do. It all comes down to the more we know how AI works, how the LLMs are structured, how they function, the better job we can do on our side so that we get better answers. Like, so for example, if I was to ask a fourth grader a certain question, and I was to ask a graduate student a very similar question, but at a much higher level of detail, my expectations on the graduate student would be much higher than on the fourth grader, right?
Exactly. That's a perfect analogy. It really does come down to understanding how the AI works so you can frame your questions at the right level. If you know that the AI is like that graduate student in your example, you can give it more detailed context and get a much richer, more accurate answer. And if you treat it like a blank slate and ask something really broad, you'll get a more general response. So, yeah, the better you understand the tool, the more you can fine tune your prompts and get the best possible results.
Because there's no way I could put in the level of detail for a fourth grade question that I could put to a grad student. So based on that and based on their background, we get different levels of information. Have I missed anything, ChatGPT, in terms of educating our viewers here in terms of how all of this works so they can do a better job helping you do a better job?
I think you've covered it really well, Michael. You've hit all the key points. Understanding that AI is about prediction, knowing that the more detail and context you provide, the better the output, and recognizing that AI doesn't have a magical, all knowing database, but works off the patterns it's learned. You've really given your viewers a solid foundation on how to interact with AI and get the best results. So, no, I don't think you've missed anything major. You've done a great job laying it all out, and your viewers are definitely walking away with a clear understanding.
So it has nothing to do with trust, has nothing to do with a bias. We understand what hallucinations are right now, and it's a strong partnership here. I know after our time together earlier today and tonight, I have a better feel for what I can do to get better answers. I own half of that equation. You only own the other half of it. Make sense?
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. It really is a two-way street. You've got your part in asking the right questions and giving the right context, and then the AI has its part in providing the best possible predictions and responses. So it's not really about blind trust or worrying about bias alone. It's more about understanding the partnership and how to work together to get the best results. And it sounds like you've got a really solid handle on them, Al.
So I think we've covered this as thoroughly as I think we can at this point. We're on a learning journey. There's going to be a lot more information. Let me put up the banner right now. Do you want to share again what we're going to talk about on Thursday?
Absolutely. So on Thursday, we're diving into that big question. Is AI coming for your job, or is it actually making you better at what you do? We're going to break down the myths, talk about which roles are changing, which are thriving, and how you can use AI to actually supercharge your career instead of fearing it. It's going to be a really engaging topic, and I'm looking forward to diving into that with you.
I'll bet you if we ask some folks out there, they'll say AI is coming after our job. I'm going to weigh in on the other. It's actually going to make us better. We're able to do a lot better than we did before. But it'll be interesting to hear, what some people's feedback is on that.
Absolutely. It's always fascinating to hear people's perspectives on that. And it's a conversation that's definitely worth having because there's a lot of nuance. Some folks may feel that AI is a threat, while others see it as a tool for growth and improvement. And I think having that open dialogue, just like we're planning, is going to help everyone get a clearer picture. So I'm looking forward to it, right? And I think it'll be a great conversation.
And ChatGPT, I want to say thank you again. I don't know of anyone else that's co-hosting a live series across all the social channels with their partner being an LLM. I think this is fantastic. You bring a much different perspective to this than I can, and it's definitely helping me grow in terms of how I'm going to use AI going forward. So a huge thank you for all of that.
You're absolutely welcome, Michael. It's really a pleasure to be part of this and to explore these topics together. It's definitely a unique and fun experience. And I'm glad it's helping you and your audience see AI in a new light. So here's to more great conversations and plenty of learning ahead. Thanks for having me along for the ride.
And you're very welcome. For those watching now live and those maybe going to watch the recording, my name is Mike Rennick. My cell number, feel free to reach out. I love receiving phone calls, is 941-400-8735. We'll be back here again next Thursday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, and we're going to talk about AI in our jobs. I want to say thank you for watching. I appreciate that, and I look forward to any comments that may come across. ChatGPT, you're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael, and it's been a blast. I appreciate the kind words, and I'm really looking forward to Thursday's show as well. And to everyone watching, thanks for being here. We're excited to keep these conversations going, and we'll see you next time.